heading in the right direction, even though it ain't perfection. Hey! Hello lovely people and welcome back to my channel. If you couldn't tell from the title of this video or my absolutely brilliant attempts at recreating Meg's intro song, then yes, I don't know what you're doing with your life or, you know, why you're not subscribed to Meg's channel, but I would urge you to just pause this video, go ahead, subscribe to her and then come back. Or first watch her video and then come back to my channel. Please come back to my channel. Anyway, so today I'm doing a collab video, Project 5 Wears. You're going to find a lot of different content on Meg's channel. She does reviews, she does playtime with palettes, she does get ready with me's, she was doing at least a project pen. I think that kind of like she called it quits recently, also in a very unique way. So that's something that I really love about Meg. She's sweet and she's so kind, but at the same time she's very like funny and very quirky, and I hope she doesn't take this the wrong way. I mean quirky in the most positive way you can ever imagine the word quirky being applied to a human being. I have absolutely loved being in contact with her. She is like this beautiful ballerina. She also dances in her real life and she does really interesting makeup. She's very experimental with her makeup and I just absolutely love watching her videos. They're so relaxing. She's so well spoken. She's so like chill to watch, but at the same time really funny and really engaging. I don't know, I cannot sell you Meg's channel enough, so I just hope that you're going to go and subscribe. And may I add, Meg is also really brave. A while back she did a tutorial for a smoky eye in Flemish. In Flemish, you guys. Not many people, not many expats anyway, would have the guts to come and do a video tutorial in Flemish or in Dutch if that's not their native language. I speak Dutch fairly fluently. I don't think that my Dutch is really bad, and yet I would never have the guts to come on YouTube and do anything makeup related in Dutch because I can barely hear myself talk English, let alone Dutch on camera. So without further ado, for those of you who don't know what Project 5 Wears is, Project 5 Wears is basically a little bit like a shop my stash kind of video. So the whole idea is that I pick a palette and then I create 5 looks with this palette, but I don't do those looks in the setting of a tutorial, so you're not going to see me create each of the looks. Essentially what you're going to see is I'm just going to tell you what I did for each of the 5 looks, pointing to the shades and what techniques I used. Like I said, today we're going to be dealing with the ABH Prism palette. This is how she looks like. Prism was a holiday release for Anastasia Beverly Hills, I want to say 2017, so already 2 years ago. So this palette has been around for quite a while, and I'm really happy that Meg selected this palette for us to do this Project 5 Wears with, because I can tell you this palette has not seen the light of day from my drawer in at least a year. I haven't pulled her out in a really long time, and I think this was a really interesting exercise. But I'm going to come back and tell you my final thoughts on the palette after we do the Project 5 Wears. So for now I'm just going to leave you with the 5 looks and I hope you're going to enjoy them. So for today's look I'm sticking to something super simple. I love the contrast of gold and purple together, and I'm also not really going anywhere, so I decided to not do anything too complicated for today's look. So what I did is I started off the look with this shade here. This is the transition shade. It kind of has like these like beige yellowy undertones to it, and it works really well as a transition shade for me. I cannot use it as a brow bone highlight, it's just a tad too dark for that, but it works great as a transition. So I applied it quite liberally in my crease and I took it quite high up into my crease. I'm not sure whether the lighting allows you to be able to see how far up I have this shade, but I pretty much have it all the way up here. Then to deepen my crease I took this beautiful orangey burnt type of shade. On a smaller crease brush I just took it through my crease, and then in the outer corner and smoked out a little bit in like a wing liner shape I have the deep chocolate brown shade. This shade applied really beautifully, and I was once again reminded of why I love my ABH palettes, because the quality of the eyeshadows is actually pretty great. Then on my lids I applied a light layer of glitter glue just to make sure that the metallic shades have something sticky to adhere to, because that just works better. I have to point out a lot of the shades in this palette have a very like silicone-y texture to them, and they're quite hard to pick up on a brush, and they almost feel like creams in the pan. So I don't know whether you will be able to tell. This shade here, the orange shade, looks really smooshed in the pan precisely for this reason. I have used it quite a lot, but I feel like the big dent in it is not so much from the use, but rather the texture of this eyeshadow. It's very, very cream feeling, and you have to like really smoosh your finger to get the pigment out. And this shade doesn't really work for me with a brush unless I have something like, I don't know, like a pencil type of brush that I can really poke into the eyeshadow with. So I do actually use my fingers a lot to apply these eyeshadows. The first one I went into is the gold shade over here, which I applied more towards the center of the lid. And then in the inner part of my lid and in the inner corner I applied this one here, which is the duochrome shade, which has like a white cool gold flip to it, and I really love it. I wanted to have quite a striking contrast between my outer corner and my lid area, and I did want to have a bit of the depth of that gold, but I did not want to like have it on my lid too obvious. I don't really know why, I just felt like it. Then on my lower lash line I applied a tiny bit of this Kiko eyeshadow stick. This is the number 16, which is a beautiful sort of mid-toned dark purple shade, and I use that as a base, over top of which I applied what I consider to be my least favorite shade in this palette, and that is this purple shade over here. So I did use that on my lower lash line over top of the purple, just to give a pop of purple and to contrast the gold and the purple, because I think they make a really beautiful combination. And after that, because I recently came to the realization that I'm not using my Stila Glitter and Glow eyeshadows a lot and they're starting to dry out, I applied a very light layer of this one. This is Kitten Karma, because I just wanted to have a little bit more of, you know, sparklies. Then on my lips I applied first this lipstick from Urban Decay. This is the shade Interrogate, which is a beautiful sort of peachy nude shade. And I do like to apply glosses over top of this lipstick, and to stick with the Anastasia theme, I picked the lip gloss in the shade Girly, which is a gorgeous peach base with pink sparkles. I applied this shade as usual as my transition shade, so I took it on in my crease and like quite high up, so all the way towards almost under my brow bone. Then I went straight into the dark brown shade and I applied this shade with a more precise crease brush so that I can deposit the color and then blend it out really lightly. And what I like about this shade is that you can really pack a punch with it, but you can also really blend it out through your crease without it being too intense. And I didn't really intensify the outer corner much because I knew I was going to go with the green shade eventually. So on my lids I basically applied glitter glue and then went straight into the metallic shades. I applied this shade first. This is the shade Sphinx, which is a nice mid-tone bronzy type of brown. Nothing really too special. Definitely a shade that I would not get too overexcited by. Then towards the inner part of the lid, just on like the inner 1/3 of the lid, I applied this shade Pyramid just to start giving more light towards the inner corner. And then in the inner corner itself I applied this Lucid shade. Then I took this shade on a very small liner type of brush, I pushed it into my lash line and then I slightly elongated towards the outer corner without taking it into like a very long wing, just like this sort of like thick stumpy thing, which does kind of create a triangular shape in the end of the eye, just so it creates a bit of like this elongated shape. And then I also took it halfway through my lid on the lower lash line. And the thing is, when I applied it with the brush just dry, honestly it looked mostly black other than anything else. So I did actually spritz my brush with Fix Plus and I applied a layer of the wet eyeshadow over top of the dry liner that I had applied before because I really wanted to see that green. Afterwards, similar to what I did for my first look, I did apply a little bit of one of my Stila Glitter and Glow eyeshadows. This one is in the shade Bronzed Belle. So my choice for super easy lipstick today is this moisture rich lipstick from Suku in the shade Fresh Beige. It is a gorgeous sort of peachy nude, which applies very richly on the lips. It feels very comfortable, it's very moisturizing. I truly love this formula. Alright you guys, at look number 3, I pretty much can say with a clear conscience that this might be one of my favorite looks that I have ever done with this palette. if I do dare say so myself. Anyway, I went for something very classic in my book, which is purple and green. I mean, ultimate timeless classic. We can agree on that, I think. And if we don't, you can leave my channel like right now. But let me tell you what I did for this look. So I started off the look with this really cool toned pinky mauve shade over here. After that I dipped into the black. I don't think I had ever actually used that shade previously because, as you know, my newfound love for black only happened in the past year or so, and I really enjoyed this shade, you guys. I think it's a great black matte shade. It's very intense, it's very punchy, it's very blendable. There's just nothing bad about this shade that I can say. I really love it. As far as a black eyeshadow goes, this one is great. After that, I applied this shade over here, which is the black and purple, all over my lid. I didn't use a glitter glue. I'm sure glitter glue would have made this shade much more punchy and much more purple, but because I knew I was going to layer something over top of that, I didn't feel the need for applying a glitter glue at that stage. Afterwards, I applied a glitter base and I went in with this shade here, which is the gorgeous smoky purple. Oh, I love this shade. This is definitely one of my favorite shades in this palette because it is absolutely stunning. It is so beautiful and so complex, and you can change so much about it by just switching up whether you're applying it over a dark base or a more light base. I did apply it over obviously a very dark color, so I feel like that brought a lot of dimension and complexity to this eyeshadow, and I feel like it's such a stunning eyeshadow. Then for my inner corner I applied this shade and this shade sort of mixed together. Then on my lower lash line I actually did apply a little bit of the black just here in the outer corner of the eye. And then for my waterline I went into one of my Kiko long lasting eyeshadow sticks. This one is in the number 10, it is a gorgeous green, and I did want to apply this as a base because I wanted the black and green in this palette to pop a bit more. On my lips I am wearing an Urban Decay lipstick. This one is in the shade Back Talk. Back Talk is a gorgeous pink shade in their Comfort Matte formula, and I feel like it is pretty much the lipstick version but slightly warmer of this shade over here, which is why I felt like it would play up really well with what I have going on my eyes. Alright you guys, look number 4 with the Prism palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Today I'm wearing a green dress and I really wanted to do like a contrasting color on my lids, so I went for like an orange-green combo, which like orange and green together is one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen, I promise you that. And the shades that I'm wearing on my lid are, I went in with this one here, the Unity color, as my transition shade. Then I applied this color, which is called Saturn, all over my lid and blended into like the crease. Then on my lid I went into this shade, which is Eternal. It is one of my favorites in this palette. Is this gorgeous metallic orange. It is a little bit difficult to pick up on any sort of like means, finger, brush, everything, because it's so dimethicone. Then on my inner corners I went in first with Lucid, the champagne gold shade, and then over top of that I applied the Sphere shade to give it a little bit more of that lime green glow, and I think it looks beautiful together with the orange. On my lower lash line, oh yeah, before I finish off my lids, I actually wanted to have a bit more sparkle on my lid, so all over my lid, but centered a bit more towards the center, I applied Bronzed Belle, which is one of my glitter and glows, like I said. Then on my lower lash line, as a base for the green shade, I applied this Kiko eyeshadow stick in the number 10. And then over top of that, I went in with Throne, the dark green, and I just absolutely love how it turned out. The little detail liner situation that I got going on. So I winged the liner and then I decided to be a bit extra and do a little bit of like a double wing situation. So I grabbed one of my NYX Vivid Brights. This one is in the shade Vivid Escape, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is Vivid Escape. And I did like a half like green wing. Unfortunately, these are starting to dry out and look a little bit more cracked than usual. But that being said, I still absolutely love them and I do really like them as accents in my looks like this. By the way, there's going to be actually like more in-depth, not really tutorial, but like demo for this look in my taking you along with me on my process of getting ready video, which is probably going to be posted before this one, so I will link that up in the cards here for you to check it out. On my lips I'm wearing a combination of two of my favorite lipsticks. This is first of all mostly Max Chili, which is the most gorgeous pumpkin orange shade ever. This is the perfect fall lipstick. Never ever a more perfect fall lipstick has been created. And over top of that, just for a little bit of glow, because this is a comfort matte and I'm really gravitating towards the cream lipsticks lately, I have my Suikyu Extra Glow 01 lipstick. And that is it for look number 4. So for my last look with the ABH Prism palette, I went in a somewhat odd direction, or at least I think it took a very odd turn. So the thing is, I was kind of hesitating between doing something with this shade and doing something with this shade, and it was a little bit of a toss between the two, and I'm going to come back and tell you why I didn't choose this shade in the end. So I did choose to do something with the lime green shade here, which is called Sphere, and I wanted to do something like super light on the lid with something that resembles a cut crease. I would not go as far as calling it a cut crease, but let's say something of the sort, with like a really dark wing to sort of create like a very contrasting type of look. So let me tell you what I did. I applied this shade here through my crease, and then the next thing that I did is I grabbed one of my Kiko long-lasting eyeshadow sticks. What I use this Kiko eyeshadow stick for is to sort of do something like a cut crease. I don't think it turned out very cut creasy, for one because I didn't add a darker shade to create more definition in my crease, so you can't really see that it's a bit of a cut crease type of situation. But I did use a little liner brush like this one, and I did try to create like a really defined line between the green and the concealer type of shade, because I wanted to put this shade Lucid, so this one over here, the champagne gold shade, on my lid, but I did have the impression a little bit that this shade applies a bit too sheer, and I really wanted it to be very stark and like very contrasting. And then I went into the shade Throne. I put a couple of drops of Doodle-line in that, and again using a small liner brush such as this one, I winged a liner, and I just basically used this shade to create like a very defined wing. And those are all the shades that I used from the palette actually. So it's not a very complicated look, but it is a somewhat different look from what I'm normally used to. I applied Urban Decay's Midnight Cowboy just here in the center of my lid for a bit of sparkle, because I cannot really help myself. And then that's pretty much all that's going on my eyes. For my lips, I was hesitating between something a bit more nude or a bit more like orangey brown, and in the end I chose for nude because I feel like it's the kind of look that takes really well on a more nude kind of lip. So I used a combination of two lipsticks. One is the shade Donatella from Pat McGrath, which is the nudest lip that I have in my collection. It's sort of like a taupey nude. Don't know how else to describe it. And on top of that, to give it a bit more of like peach tones and a bit more of like a cream finish, I applied this shade. It's an Extra Glow lipstick from Suikyu. And with that, I want to conclude the Project 5 wears and give you a couple of final thoughts that I have on the Prism palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. So first off, like I said in my intro, this palette has not really seen the light of day in over a year. I remember I bought this palette when it came out and I was obsessed with it. I think I used it for a month almost straight, which is why you also see that there is use on these eyeshadows. It doesn't look like an eyeshadow palette that has not been used much. So at the time I really loved it, I really used it, but then things happened in my life, things such as Pat McGrath eyeshadows, Juvia's Place eyeshadows, and I kind of forgot about this palette. And then when Meg said, oh, let's pull out the Prism palette, I was like, oh yeah, the Prism palette, I still have that in my drawers. So I'm happy that I did with this Project 5 wears with it. I especially liked the purple green look that I did, so the one that featured Dimension. And this is where my problem comes. I think that except for Dimension, I would not miss any of these other eyeshadows. Like if someone came and raided my drawers and Prism was to disappear, I might not even notice. It's not an eyeshadow palette right now that I would really miss in my collection. So this is definitely an eyeshadow palette that's going to be considered in my declutter next time I declutter my makeup a little bit, because I've been keeping it so far, but now I'm reaching a point where I think none of these shades is really exciting to me except for this shade here, except for the shade Dimension, because that is a really beautiful shade. It's such an interesting and complex shadow. I really like it. But that is pretty much the only shade that makes my heart skip a beat in this palette. Nothing else really excites me here. So yeah, at this point unfortunately I'm not super in love with it. It is a very interesting color story. I do really like the super colorful random combination of colors. The complaints that I have with this palette are only that this shade and this shade are a bit too redundant in this color story for me to really be necessary that you have both. And I don't really like this shade, the shade Sphinx. I don't think it's a very interesting or impactful shade. Honestly, none of these other shimmers, except for Dimension, really are. And my biggest problem is this shade here, which is called Lure, which is not a bad shade, you guys. It's a beautiful, very blendable mauvey pink, like a cool toned mauvey pink, like the one in the new Pat McGrath palette, which I will admit now that I'm probably going to buy. I'm sorry, I'm a hypocrite. But anyway, I like this shade, but I have a really hard time pairing it with the rest of the shades in this palette. And I know theoretically you have to pair it with the purples, that's what it's here for. But I feel like it's just a bit too cool toned to really go well with either of these purples. You can use it to blend out, definitely it will work. But actually, I actually pull this shade only when I want to do looks with this shade, which is also an Anastasia Beverly Hills shade. This is Pink Champagne, which is one of the most beautiful shades that I have in my collection. It's a single. It does exist in a lot of ABH palettes, but I think those are old and discontinued. I do really love this shade, and I think that this mauvey shade goes really well with it, like really well to blend out and do a simple look. And with that I'm going to conclude the rambling. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the 5 looks that I created with this palette. Please don't forget to go and watch Meg's video. I'm so curious what kind of looks she created. I'm sure she did something super out there and something very different. As usual, thank you so much for watching. I hope we can hang out again soon. Until then, let me know what you think about these Project 5 wares in the comment section below. And I will see you next time. Bye!